Okay, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us at our third virtual community workshop that we are holding as part of our work on the creation of the Downtown Burbank Transit-Oriented Development, or TOD specific plan. My name is Leonard Boucher, and I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department of the City of Burbank and the project manager for the project. Tonight, we have several staff members online from the Community Development Department, as well as from our consultant team. I'll go ahead and list off the names so that we may keep the presentation moving forward. From the city, we have Fred Ramirez, Scott Plambeck, Greg Mersa Avakian, Marcel Medina, and David Kim. And from our consultant team, we have Juan Gomez Novi from the firm of Mullen Palazoides and Suzanne Huerta from the firm of Rincon and Associates. Next slide. Before we continue any further, we want to provide instruction to those who may need translation services, which includes an option for Spanish or Armenian translation. We'll start with Maciel Medina, who will be providing Spanish translation. Maciel, will you explain the instructions in Spanish, please? Maciel, can you hear us? Switch to the English audio channel, Maciel, so that you can give us the instructions in Spanish. Okay, I think we're having some technical difficulty. Greg, if you want to go ahead and say it in Spanish.
Leonard, can you hear these guys talking? Somebody's talking to you. I don't know who it is.
Mhm.
Can't hear them. Are you on English?
Oh. Okay, now.
Okay. Hop back. They were calling out for you.
Okay, Marcel, try again. Yeah, we can hear you now. Okay. Okay, thank you, Marcel. Now we will hear from Greg Mersa Avakian, who will be providing Armenian translation. Greg, will you explain the instructions in Armenian, please? Yeah, we can hear you. So it appears that not everybody can hear. So why don't we go ahead and do this? If anybody needs translation, go ahead and either raise your hand or just send us a message so that we know if anybody is utilizing the service. I think what's happening is Maciel and Greg are speaking on the translation channel. So that's why the attendees can't hear it. You can hear them if you go into your box at the bottom and change the language. So we'll go ahead and wait a couple moments just to see if anybody requests the translation. If not, we can move forward. Okay, so seeing no raised hands and no chat messages beyond the messages that you can't hear the translators, we'll go ahead and move forward. If at any time somebody does need translation, feel free to let us know and we can turn that service on, and we'll most definitely have them participate when we go through the Q&A so that we can cover any Armenian or Spanish speakers that may join us. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue. So tonight's presentation will begin with a project overview, followed by a description of the plan's development strategy for each of the plan areas, neighborhoods, districts, corridors, and we'll conclude with an overview of the EIR process and a summary of the EIR analysis that we are preparing for the project in order to solicit your input on the scope of the EIR. Next slide. We're hoping that technology runs smoothly tonight for everyone, but please bear with us if we experience any technical difficulties as we just have. As an attendee of this webinar, your video is turned off and your audio will be automatically muted. You will have an opportunity to provide voice comments during the question and or comment sessions. Instruction will be provided at the start of each comment session. You may leave written comments anytime during the webinar by pressing the chat button in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. This workshop is being recorded and will be available on the Downtown TOD website following the webinar at www.downtownburbanktod.com. And we're also live streaming the workshop to the city's YouTube channel, and you can also view the workshop on that channel as well after the meeting concludes. Next slide. Again, you may provide feedback during the question and or comment sessions of the webinar. You may submit comments anytime during the webinar by using the chat feature, or you may submit comments anytime via the project website at www.downtownburbanktod.com or by emailing me, the project planner, at lbashay@burbankca.gov. Due to the amount of time we have for tonight's workshop, we will only be able to take a limited number of live questions and or comments. A list of comments and questions, including answers submitted via the chat feature, will be available on the project website at www.downtownburbanktod.com. We have also prepared an interactive survey that may be accessed on the project website and is available in English, Spanish, and Armenian translations. Next slide, please. To begin, I'll provide a brief project overview. Next slide. There are two planning documents in place that guide the land uses for downtown Burbank: the Burbank Center Plan and the San Fernando Boulevard Master Plan, adopted in 1997 and 2012 respectively. While both plans were effective at the time of adoption, they are no longer effective to help the city address the housing and affordability crisis it is currently facing. The city applied for and was awarded grant funding from Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Authority, or Metro, and the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, to update and combine both plans to create a new downtown Burbank TOD specific plan. The city of Burbank ranks high in terms of cost of housing and has one of the lowest vacancy rates in Los Angeles County, making it difficult for Burbank's workforce, individuals, and families of low and moderate income levels to find affordable housing in the city. The city's 45,000 residential units are far below the number needed to house the 130,000 plus people who currently work in Burbank. To meet this scarcity, the City Council has set a goal to introduce 12,000 new dwelling units citywide by the year 2035. The shortage of housing and associated lack of affordability is also an issue of statewide concern. The state has mandated that more housing be produced locally. Burbank's Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA allocation, requires a production of 8,772 units over the next 8 years. This planning effort creates an opportunity for the community to re-envision downtown and allow the city to engage the community and decision makers on developing a shared vision and guiding principles as we work together to create a plan that establishes objective standards and clear community expectations for future responsible development that builds a safe, beautiful, and thriving downtown. Next slide. The specific plan preparation process consists of 5 key phases: discovery, visioning, plan preparation, public review of the plan and EIR, and adoption. We're well underway in the process. We've conducted the existing document review and the physical analysis that have informed the project thus far. This phase included the Discovery Community Workshop, which was presented as part of a study session to the City Council in October 2020 and to the community as part of our first virtual community workshop in November 2020. The discovery phase was followed by the visioning phase, which was presented to the public as part of our second virtual community workshop in January 2021. We're also now taking the time to get additional feedback from project stakeholders, including key property owners and developers in downtown and our various city boards and commissions. Tonight's workshop will allow us to complete our work in the visioning phase and begin work on the plan and EIR preparation with the public review of the 2 documents occurring towards the end of the summer or early fall. We have decided to hold a 4th virtual community workshop as we get near to the completion of a draft plan that will present final alternatives on different plan components. We're looking to adopt the specific plan and certify the EIR, and it's tentatively scheduled for winter of 2022. Next slide. The approximately 965-acre plan area is generally bounded by Lake Street, Victory Boulevard, and Mariposa Street to the west, San Fernando Boulevard and Andover Drive to the north, Glen Oaks Boulevard and 5th Street to the east, and Tujunga Avenue and the city boundary to the south. It is divided by the I-5 freeway and the Southern Pacific Railroad right-of-way. I'll now turn the presentation over to our consultant, Juan Gomez Novi, who will present the project development strategy. Juan, the time is yours.
Thanks, Leonard, and good evening, everybody. As Leonard mentioned, I'll now present the development strategy and how it will achieve the community's vision. Here we see the existing general plan, land use map on the left, and on the proposed adjustments on the right. In order to conform to state of California housing mandates that Leonard mentioned and meet the city's housing goals, we recommend that the land use designations of a number of city-owned parcels within the downtown civic center area be changed from institutional to downtown commercial. This will allow housing, which is not currently allowed by current zoning on these parcels, to be introduced. Since these parcels are owned by the city will have direct control over how housing on these parcels is integrated with the city's plans to expand the civic center. In addition, due to the potential incompatibility between housing and the existing Burbank power plant, we recommend changing the land use designation of the parcels immediately to the east and to the south of the power plant from downtown commercial, which is purple, to North Victory Commercial Industrial, which is blue on the map. While the residential density of the downtown commercial designation will no longer apply, the existing 2.5 floor area ratio limit would continue to apply for the proposed zoning shown in the next slide. Here we see the existing zoning map on the left and the proposed on the right. First, note the boundaries of the proposed zones on the map on the right align directly with the boundaries of the land use designations of the map, the general plan land use map we just saw on the previous slide. Second, the proposed zoning reapplies zoning to the various parcels currently subject to plan development permits, most of which do not permit housing. And those are the big gray areas throughout the center of the whole plan on the left side, on the left map. This greatly increases the amount of housing that is allowed by right. As mentioned in the last workshop, this specific plan is formulated on a framework of neighborhoods, corridors, and districts. As a refresher, a neighborhood is a safe, beautiful, mixed income place, primarily for living, that also accommodates work and some retail activity. It is defined by a quarter-mile walking radius from a center, which can be a park, school, stores, or civic buildings, and is organized around a public realm of streets and parks. A district is a mixed-use place, primarily for commercial and retail activities that also accommodates living. A corridor is an important commercial or mixed-use thoroughfare located between neighborhoods and districts. There we go. And the character of each neighborhood, district, or corridor is mostly determined by the set of uses and activities that occur within each, the form of buildings, how they face and interact with the street, and how they are accessed, the design of the streets and sidewalks that provide access to them, the form, location, type, and access to parking, and the form and type of open spaces, streets, parks, paseos, and plazas. While the basic underlying structure of downtown's neighborhoods, districts, and corridors is apparent in this map here, what is generally missing in each are the placemaking features: pedestrian-friendly buildings that face and are accessed from the sidewalk, parking located behind buildings or underground, inviting open spaces, and a complete streetscape. And the first district we'll discuss is the downtown district. While San Fernando Boulevard in the downtown district has a well-defined sense of place, many streets within the district lack street trees or are fronted by parking structures, surface parking lots, and buildings with blank walls. The introduction of new, appropriately sized and massed mixed use and multifamily buildings that engage the sidewalk, along with a robust and cohesive streetscape, will transform downtown into a memorable place where people truly want to live, work, shop, visit, and play. The zoning that will guide this transformation is shown here in the map on the right. 4 zones, basically in alignment with the underlying general plan land use designations, will guide development of the downtown district. Key goals for the downtown district include preserving and enhancing San Fernando Boulevard as Burbank's most important shopping, dining, and entertainment destination, encouraging use of alleys and paseos for circulation, restaurant seating, and stormwater capture, expanding the Civic Center, and reimagining the Burbank Town Center. As we saw in the previous workshop, San Fernando Boulevard is the heart of downtown. It will be enhanced in general conformance with the recently adopted Complete Streets Plan, retaining angled parking, introducing additional street trees, widening sidewalks through the use of parklets, and most importantly, making it easy to temporarily close it down to traffic for special events. And now onto the Civic Center. The Civic Center consists of the government buildings and parking facilities, including in surrounding City Hall. Sites identified to accommodate expansion consist primarily of existing city-owned surface parking lots. The Civic Center expansion it could include a new library, new central library, additional administrative office space, a civic park or plaza that is designed to conform to the site's existing topography, and a new parking garage. New housing could also be incorporated, including on the existing central library site once the new library is built. Parking for the Civic Center will be coordinated with the overall downtown parking management strategy. Finally, the civic park or plaza or a separate transit plaza will ensure easy access to Metro's proposed bus rapid transit line along Olive Avenue. And in this sketch concept, the line parking garage is introduced along Glen Oaks Boulevard. The existing City of Burbank Administrative Services building is replaced with the new central library. The Civic Plaza or green is introduced in the existing City Hall parking lot, and the portion of the City Hall parking garage facing the plaza is lined with commercial or residential uses. A new administrative service building is introduced on the underutilized parcels adjacent to the City Hall parking garage, and residential buildings are introduced across the street from the new Civic Center garage, and not shown on here, possibly on the old library site, or the existing library site. And here's an alternative sketch where the line parking garage is situated along Orange Grove Avenue with the new central library to the south. The old administrative services building is replaced with the Civic Plaza and a new administrative services building. That'd be on the corner of Olive and 3rd. Finally, following the construction of the new City Hall parking garage, the existing City Hall garage that spans across Orange Grove Avenue could be removed and replaced with mixed-use buildings. And now the Burbank Town Center. Historically, San Fernando Boulevard ran uninterrupted through downtown Burbank. Extending San Fernando Boulevard through the mall site, either as a vehicular street or pedestrian paseo, would provide a crucial north-south connection between the North San Fernando neighborhood and downtown. Other potential interventions include introducing an urban park or plaza surrounded by ground floor retail and restaurants, introducing housing, constructing office buildings along First Street and adjacent to the I-5 freeway, and retaining the existing multi-level parking garages. Keeping the parking garages may create new shared parking opportunities and means that the $25,000 to $50,000 that would normally be spent to build each new parking space can be spent on important placemaking features such as open space, streetscape, and beautiful buildings. And here we see the existing town center site outlined in red, and some existing conditions photos on the left, and a conceptual sketch of how the town center could develop over time. The 3 parking garages are retained, as is Macy's. An urban plaza or green is introduced at the terminus of San Fernando Boulevard. Housing with ground floor retail is introduced around the plaza and in front of Macy's. An office building is introduced at the corner of First Street and Magnolia Boulevard. Finally, new housing is introduced on the old IKEA site. And actually back to the, that's okay. The North San Fernando neighborhood, there we go. And here you see how this would look if Macy's were removed in the long run. Lined by residential or mixed-use buildings, with San Fernando extending through. Now the North San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood. It's generally automobile-oriented in character. Most buildings are set back from the sidewalk behind parking lots or face the street with blank walls. In addition, there are a number of underutilized parcels that are prime for infill development. 4 zones, all in alignment with the underlying general plan land use designations, will guide the transformation of this area. Though automobile oriented in character, the North San Fernando area possesses a number of neighborhood building blocks that can be leveraged to generate a vibrant, memorable neighborhood. These include Cambridge Park, which provides nearby open spaces and recreational facilities, 2 grocery stores, proximity to downtown shopping and entertainment district, Burbank High School, and the potential of North San Fernando Boulevard to become a main street that provides neighborhood serving retail and services. The transformation begins with the introduction of new multifamily residential and mixed-use buildings on the North San Fernando, in the area's various underutilized parcels. One important opportunity site is the parcel previously occupied by the northbound Burbank Boulevard Cloverleaf off-ramp, which provides 1.5 acres of vacant land for development. Also, the existing neighborhood just to the north, bounded by San Fernando, Scott, and Leland Way, provides an opportunity for introducing new house form, missing middle multifamily buildings that seamlessly fit into the single family setting. In order to create a more pedestrian friendly environment, new streets are introduced on blocks over 4 acres in area. Here you see the North San Fernando neighborhood area with the opportunity sites outlined in red. And here's a concept sketch showing how the North San Fernando neighborhood's various streets, how the opportunity sites are infilled with the larger blocks. And the larger blocks are broken up with an introduction of new streets, in this case, extending Walnut Avenue to 3rd Street. And this is all mainly housing, primarily housing, with some retail, some commercial. The South San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood is currently built out with high density multifamily buildings constructed over the past 60 to 70 years. The streets that bound it, Glen Oaks, Alameda, San Fernando, and Verdugo, are developed with an eclectic mix of commercial, residential, and small mixed-use buildings. Most of the streets within the neighborhood are missing street trees, hampering their sense of place. 3 zones, all in alignment with the underlying general plan land use designation, will guide the incremental intensification of the South San Fernando Boulevard neighborhood. And key placemaking transformations for this neighborhood include introducing new multifamily residential buildings that face and are accessed from the street through appropriate frontages, such as porches and stoops, locating parking underground or at the rear of the site, and introducing street trees on existing neighborhood streets. And now onto the South San Fernando Boulevard district, located south of the downtown core. Existing uses are primarily light industrial with a smattering of commercial uses, most notably IKEA. With the exception of the 4 blocks just south of Verdugo Avenue, blocks within the sub-area are large or mega blocks. One zone, the urban general zone, will enable the introduction of multifamily and mixed-use buildings while continuing to accommodate existing commercial and light industrial businesses. Key goals then for the South San Fernando neighborhood for this district are to support existing and new commercial and light industrial uses while enabling more intense residential and mixed-use buildings to be introduced over time, especially along San Fernando Boulevard, where streetscape improvements were recently completed. Encouraging the conversion of existing commercial structures to accommodate work-live residential units. And then the bauble art installation in front of IKEA, currently surrounded by landscaping, offers an opportunity to be transformed into a publicly accessible open space with paths, benches, and other amenities. Infilling the portion of the IKEA parking lot adjacent to the bauble open space with a commercial or mixed use building would generate a better frontage along the open space, improving the experience of the potential park. Now onto the Olive Avenue TOD district, which is located west of the I-5 freeway and south of Magnolia Boulevard, and is home to the Burbank Downtown Metrolink Station, the City of Burbank Power Plant, and a variety of commercial, light industrial, and media-related uses, including Nickelodeon Studios. 3 zones will guide development within this district, with an important change, as described before, that residential uses will no longer be allowed on the parcels surrounding the power plant. And those are shown in dark blue on this diagram. However, commercial intensity, as mentioned, will continue to be allowed at up to 2.5 FAR. And development strategies for this district include introducing a dense, walkable, pedestrian-friendly TOD that accommodates a wide range of uses, including light industrial, office, media, service, commercial, restaurant, and hospitality uses, and growing the concentration of media-related businesses and supporting land uses by attracting new media and creative offices. As with other neighborhoods and districts, new streets are introduced on blocks 4 acres or more in size to create an urban walkable environment around the Metrolink station. Other development and placemaking strategies include transforming Victory Boulevard into a main street that provides neighborhood serving uses for the Olive Avenue TOD district, and introducing streetscape improvements that activate the street and create a pedestrian friendly environment. On the transit side, the proposed North Hollywood to Pasadena BRT line along Olive Avenue is welcomed with stops introduced at the intersection of Olive Avenue and Victory, and on the Olive Avenue Bridge at the Metrolink station. And in conjunction with construction of the high-speed rail, east-west connectivity could be enhanced with the introduction of a bridge or underpass across the rail tracks at Verdugo Boulevard. The Olive Avenue TOD district is envisioned to infill over time with commercial buildings that support creative and media related uses, as well as live-work uses. Mega blocks and large parcels are reduced in size with the introduction of streets, with buildings that face and are accessed from the sidewalk. Parcels adjacent to the Burbank Channel are encouraged to introduce open spaces that relate to the Burbank Channel. Then finally, we have the Victory Boulevard Creative and Industrial Corridor, located in the northwest portion of the plan area. This corridor consists mainly of commercial and light industrial buildings and uses, including the city's water reclamation plant. Importantly, single-family residential neighborhoods border to the west. 4 new zones, all aligned with the underlying general plan land use designations, will guide development with the Victory within this corridor. In continuity with existing zoning, the new zone will facilitate light industrial, commercial, media, creative, and other job-producing uses, and support adaptive reuse of existing buildings for office, media, creative, and live-work uses. The new zones will also enable the introduction of housing in areas located near residential neighborhoods, particularly west of Victory Boulevard, between Burbank and Chandler Boulevards. In addition, all new development near these single-family neighborhoods will continue to be required to step down in height and scale to existing single-family houses. So that was an overview of the neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. Now we will we'll talk about the TOD and exceptional project bonuses. The general plan has 2 land use policies that allow density and intensity limits on applicable parcels to be exceeded by up to 25%. The first is for TOD projects within transit corridors and centers as identified in the general plan mobility element. The second is for exceptional projects that advance the general plan's goals and policies. The parcels within the specific plan that may qualify for the TOD bonus are shown in blue, while the parcels that may qualify for the exceptional project bonus are shown in yellow. As part of the specific plan development strategy, staff will define in more detail the qualification requirements for both TOD and exceptional projects and incorporate a voluntary program that would allow developers the ability to increase base density and intensity up to 25% in exchange for providing a certain number of public benefits that would increase affordability consistent with the city's inclusionary housing program, increase on-site and off-site open space, increase off-site bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and or contribute towards the city's neighborhood protection efforts. The next step in this specific plan process is to develop a list of public benefits based on these 4 categories that will be incorporated into the specific plan's development standards as a tiered menu correlated with increases in density and intensity. So a bigger increase in density will require a bigger share of community benefits. And then finally, a brief recap of the development potential. A number of parcels have been identified as opportunities for infill, intensification, and adaptive reuse over the plan's 15-year horizon. These consist of pipeline project sites shown on the left and opportunity sites shown on the right. The opportunity sites are groupings of generally underutilized parcels that are either city-owned, under single private ownership, or contiguous parcels under separate ownership that contain service parking lots, low-intensity buildings, or underperforming uses that are ripe for converting to more intense uses. Pipeline project sites apply to parcels that developers have submitted applications to the city to develop housing, hotel, and commercial projects. And finally, here's the development potential for all the sites. Just over 5,600 residential units, almost 4.2 million square feet of non-residential square footage, and almost 1,400 hotel rooms. This is the development potential that will be studied by the environmental impact report. Now we would like to hear from you. So if you would like to provide comments or questions regarding what's been presented, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you everybody for standing by with us. So just to kind of recap, as Juan mentioned, if you'd like to make a voice comment, raise the hand icon, and then David or I will prompt you to unmute yourself to speak. Due to the time constraint that we have, you'll be able to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. If we do not get to you during this comment period, you can go ahead and submit your comments or questions through the chat icon. There will be time towards the end of tonight's presentation for staff to answer your questions, or if needed, staff will gather and respond to your questions, comments after the presentation tonight. So I see one hand. So David, why don't you go ahead and allow Josh Christensen to speak?
Okay, Josh.
How are we doing tonight? You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Joshua Christensen. I'm a representative with the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. And great projects, great plan. We just want to make sure that we implement certain things to this plan. And one of those things, some of those things that we were asking to implement is is local hire. We gotta, after this coming up this pandemic, we gotta put our local people back to work, including veterans, including the women, anyone that's willing to work and be able to build. Another thing also, most importantly, is mortgage paying jobs. We wanna be able to keep, be able to live in Burbank and work in Burbank and be off the roads, off the freeways. And the only way we can do that is have a mortgage paying job. And that should be also a requirement on here as well. Healthcare for all the workers, including their families. That's part of upping the standard here in Burbank. Um, we also want to see contractors, all contractors that get these projects, that they go through a background check to make sure that they have no labor fraud in their background and have good labor practices that in their background as well. So they do a background check. We're asking this. We're on behalf of 60,000 carpenters in Southern California. We live here in Burbank and we want to build here in Burbank, and we build some of the most highest quality things that you can see. We got that Burbank Bridge going on right now. It is looking awesome. It's going smooth, and we just want to build in our own city where we live at. I appreciate your time, and this is all I have to say today. Thank you much.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And just to let everybody know, I have received several comments over the last 2 days talking to that same effect. So what we will do is look into it and see how we can address and study some of these items that you brought up tonight. And then we'll also include it as part of our analysis in the EIR.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, so it looks like we have a question in the chat box. What's the plan for EV charging stations accommodation? And that's from Sean. That is something that we're also looking into. We made a presentation in the last workshop about some of the improvements to transportation and pedestrian and bicyclist improvements that we're looking at in the plan. But this would sort of fall into that as well as part of the analysis for the EIR. So that is something that we're looking at, and hopefully we'll have some more information as we get closer to the writing of the plan. Okay, and I don't see any other hands raised. And just to add, before we move on, in my presentation about the schedule I had talked about, we're currently meeting with all of the city boards and commissions and also meeting with stakeholders. So we're still working on that, and we're still trying to meet with as many property owners, especially those that own the opportunity sites that we're calling out, just to make sure that they're involved in the planning process so we can hear their plans and make sure that we're working together. So that will probably be ongoing probably into the summer. And then of course, like I brought up, we have met with the majority of the city boards and commissions. So they're all aware of the project. They've given us their comments and their support. And like I said, we're looking to do another workshop probably towards the end of the summer when we start really looking at the different options and alternatives. And that's really going to start getting into the weeds and the nuts and bolts as to how the plan is going to work. And we're also going to be unveiling the objective standards. So stay tuned for that one as well. Okay. Okay, and it looks like there's another question from Sean in the chat. So what about the incorporation of car-free streets? That is something that we're also looking at. I think one of the big comments that we've heard through this process is the opportunity to close San Fernando Boulevard to traffic. That was done about 20 years ago, and then it converted back into automobile traffic. But we've seen through the pandemic that there is opportunity to maybe possibly think about closing it down. We're looking at how best to do that and how doing something like that would serve not only the residents, but also the business owners. So that is something that we're looking at. And we're really using the Complete Our Streets plan, which was vetted through the community and approved in 2019 as the kind of foundation for the improvements that we make to the streets. So we hope to have some more information on some of those changes as we kind of work through with our Public Works Department and with our Transportation Department to see what areas that may make sense to do. Okay, well, seeing as there aren't any more hands raised at this point and there aren't any more questions coming in through the chat, we can go ahead and segue into the second part of today's presentation, which is the EIR scoping meeting. And if you have any other questions on the first part of the presentation, at the end of the second part, there'll also be opportunity again to ask the question. So don't worry if you think of something while we're looking at the second presentation. Okay, Suzanne, whenever you're ready, the time is yours.
Thank you, Leonard. Good evening, everyone. As Leonard said, my name is Suzanne Huerta. I'm with Rincon Consultants. We are the city's consultants for preparation of the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. The purpose of tonight's meeting is, tonight's scoping portion of the meeting is to solicit input from the community regarding the proposed specific plan. So I will provide an overview of the EIR process and a summary of the EIR analysis that we are preparing. Next slide. So the EIR will be prepared consistent with state law called the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA requires disclosure of the potential impacts associated with the project. This allows decision makers to be fully informed on the implications of moving forward with the project. CEQA also requires that we identify mitigation measures or project alternatives that would help to reduce or avoid potentially significant impacts. And one of the main purposes of CEQA is to enhance public participation in the planning and environmental review process. The EIR will analyze the growth associated with the proposed project, which will include up to approximately 5,626 new residential units, approximately 4.1 million square feet of commercial and industrial development, and 1,374 hotel rooms. The EIR will also consider the street improvements and for pedestrians and cyclists, and the new park and open spaces associated with the project. Next slide. Thank you. So this shows the major steps involved in preparing an EIR, which are in blue, and the boxes in green on the right identify opportunities for the community to comment. Right now, we are at the beginning of this process. The city has issued the public notice that an EIR is being prepared, which marks the start of the EIR scoping period, and which is a 30-day window in which the city will collect comments from the public and from other agencies. The city wants to hear from the public regarding your areas of concern and what should be analyzed in the EIR. The next steps will be to prepare the draft EIR, which will be published for the community to review and submit comments during the 45-day public review period. Then the city will prepare the final EIR, which will include responses to your comments. The city council will then take the steps, the last steps, which involve certifying the EIR at a public hearing. Next slide. So a CORR environmental review requires that we analyze the 20 issues listed here. We will conduct an initial study that will provide a qualitative analysis of each of these issue areas. And the EIR will provide a more detailed analysis for these issue areas that would potentially result in a significant environmental impact. So as you prepare your comments on the scope of the EIR, please consider this list of resources and discuss areas of concern that you may have along these specific topics. Next slide. So we analyzed the impacts associated with the project based on the CEQA guidelines. We provide the setting for the existing conditions, also referred to as the baseline conditions, and determine if impacts will be below the significance thresholds under the CEQA guidelines. If significant impacts are anticipated, we consider mitigation measures that will reduce the impacts to a level less than significant. And some impacts may be considered significant and unavoidable. So in those cases, decision makers will have to determine if the benefits of the project outweigh the significant and unavoidable impacts. Next slide. In addition to the impact analysis, the EIR is also required to analyze these three issues: cumulative impacts, growth-inducing, and alternatives. Under cumulative impacts are the incremental impact of the project when added to other projects that are pending or anticipated in the reasonably foreseeable future. The individual impact associated with the project may be minor, but they can be considered cumulatively significant when paired with other projects. Under growth-inducing impacts, we'll discuss the ways in which the updates to the specific plan may foster growth in the city. And for alternatives, the EIR requires an analysis of a reasonable range of alternatives. Up to 3 alternatives will be analyzed, including the no project alternative, which is required under CEQA. And the project alternatives will be determined based on the analysis in the draft EIR. And then we will also consider any alternatives that may be suggested during this scoping period. Next slide. This is the preliminary schedule for the EIR. The notice of preparation was circulated to the public on May 20th. As I've mentioned, we are currently in the scoping period, so we're taking your comments regarding the impacts that should be analyzed. And then we have gotten started on preparing the analysis now, and we anticipate completing the draft EIR in the summer, maybe around July. And then the draft EIR will go for the 45 public review period, which will be around late summer or early fall. Based on that timeline, we'll respond to public comments and prepare the final EIR in the late fall. And we anticipate that the specific plan in the EIR will go to public hearings at the end of the year and into early 2022. Next slide. So we are here to take your comments on the scope of the EIR. Please you can provide comments tonight, or you can also provide written comments by June 18th regarding your thoughts on the potential impacts that should be analyzed. Your comments can be mailed or emailed to Leonard Boucher, and his contact is provided on the slide. So we can keep that up for a few seconds so that people can take down Leonard's contact information. Okay, next slide. So for any comments or input for the EIR, you can add your comments to the chat so we can have them in writing for the record. We are also here to take your comments, but just to note that we have not prepared the analysis yet, so we don't have answers to questions about the actual impact analysis, but we can answer any general questions about the CEQA or the EIR process. So for clarification about the information that's been provided or questions about the process, you can press the participants icon and then select the raise hand icon.
Okay, so we'll just wait a couple more moments just to see if anybody has anything they want to add before we move on. Okay, so we did have a comment. So it just says this may be more appropriate for the first section of this meeting, but I recommend the team take a look at potential needed future considerations regarding urban air mobility in Burbank. So here's an applicable link from LA County. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that, Mike. Thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, seeing no other raised hands and no other questions in the chat, that actually takes us to the end of the presentation this evening. So just to recap, you can still submit comments either on the specific plan itself or the CEQA process, the environmental impact report. Comments for the environmental impact report scoping portion would need to be sent my way no later than June 18th at 5 p.m. So my email address is on the project website in case you missed it now. And then if any of you received the mail-in notices or the email blast that we sent out, you can go ahead and find my contact information there as well. And again, the presentation will be made available online. And we're also working to get some of the other documents that we've used to help us kind of reach this point online in the next few weeks. So kind of be on the lookout for that. And we will let you all know once we get to the next phase of the project and we're ready to do another virtual community meeting. So unless there's any other questions before we close out, we can go ahead and end the meeting now. I want to thank everybody for their time and thank you for the questions and the comments received. And we look forward to working with you all in the future. Take care, everybody.